regards to child support. I've been there for 20 years, and almost that whole time, I've been involved with not only CCADV, but the DBP program at the state office. I sat on their selection committees and everything. So this is a very good, I like working with you folks. And like Amy said, please, if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. Because I've been a trainer for so long, I assume a lot, which I know I'm not supposed to, but a lot of times I will just think everyone knows what I'm talking about. So let's just get started. And do you want me to, or okay, you can drive.
I just got something.
So basically, I thought, you know, and if these goals aren't what you're thinking I should talk about, definitely let's talk about other things. But I just wanted to kind of start with our history of our program, who we serve, kind of what services that we provide, and basically what a family violence option, the NDI, is for our child support program. I'll get into that a little bit more, but you may be very familiar with the good cause that the TANF side, the the Colorado WIC has in their program. We have a similar option for child support. Talk about a little bit of definitions. Your predecessor, Shannon, was like, you know, we don't know what all these terms are. So I'll try and hit a few of them for you before we get into things. We are called the 4D program, and that is because we are under the Section 4D of the Social Security Act, and our federal authority falls all under that. TANF, they're 4A. They're in the 4A section. They're, of course, one of the first sections that was written in the Social Security Act for the welfare programs. 4B, excuse me, B as in boy, is Medicaid. Let's see, we do have 4E, which is foster care. So that's kind of where we always call ourselves the 4D program, is where our federal authority is. A custodial parent, it's kind of funny, we really have custodial party can be, you know, mom, dad, grandparents, aunts and uncles, anyone that can show that they have actual custody or have the children in their care. We have non-custodial parents. We actually try to not really use that too much either, because we have a lot of families now that have 50-50 parental custody. So, but if we have to choose someone who has less time or has more means than the other party, would be the non-custodial parent, and they're the one who is paying the child support. Just to say a quick note too on emancipation, a lot of folks think that a child emancipates at 18. For Colorado, child support goes on till the age of 19. So it does get a little confusing sometimes. A lot of times non-custodial parents will say, hey, I'm all done. And we're like, no, you're not. You have a whole another year, unless they do have secondary education in the order as well. Do we have a question?
Oh,
no,
someone
okay.
said they just had a little trouble hearing you, so I was just...
Oh, okay. Really? My big mouth, you can't hear me. So at the top of the next column is a default order, and you may have heard of this. This is the ability, we actually have the ability to file what's called a default order. That's when the non-custodial parent that we have served their financial affidavits, et cetera, to them, and they just do not show up either in the negotiation conference or in a court hearing. So you may actually hear a lot of people say that, oh, we didn't know anything about this. We do have to show through the courts and to the judge specifically the proof of service to that specific person. So we just really can't just willy-nilly serve anybody and just say, okay, you were served and off we go. But that is what a default order is, and yes, they do happen. Modification, that is a process of looking at everyone's financial circumstances and then turning around and adjusting a child support order. It has to be at least 10% up or down before the court will make any changes. But a modification can be done at any time there's a change in either financial or living situation and circumstances. We are actually federally mandated to review all the cases in which the family is receiving TANF benefits every 3 years, regardless if anyone contacts us or not. Wage withholding, that's actually an order that we send to the non-custodial parent's employer. It is in our state statute that we collect all child support through a wage withholding or an income assignment, and that goes directly to the employer. And so then money, the current child support and any arrears or back support that is due is pulled out of the paycheck prior to the non-custodial parent receiving their paycheck. So those are just a few definitions. If you have something else, or I slip another one in, and you don't know what it is, please let me know. Okay, so our history. So basically it was back in 1975. Welfare had been going along for about 30 years. And Congress back then looked and said, you know, why in the world are all these families receiving welfare? Back then it was Aid to Families with Dependent Children, AFDC. And they said, you know what, we need to get the absent parent, is what they called back then, the non-custodial parent, the absent parent. We need them to be able to come forward and at least pay back the citizens for the welfare money or the welfare cost that was paid out to the family. So in 1975, child support was established by writing the federal law under Title 4D in the Social Security Act. At that time, up until 1984, we only serviced clients that were receiving TANF benefits. So, you know, if you had a private divorce, we weren't in the market, or we did not enforce those orders. But that all changed in 1984. The federal government decided that everyone would be available or able to apply for our services. So right now in the state of Colorado, anyone can come through the door, pay a $20 fee, whether you have a child support order through a private divorce or you have nothing at all. Paternity, we established paternity. If you're not sure who the father is, we established child support and medical support. Some counties, we do have policies where they will establish and collect debt, which is the TANF benefit. A lot of times we are forgiving that anymore as a negotiation piece with the non-custodial parent. And sometimes we do go back what's due under the order. Say if the custodial parent had a divorce order from 2015, just has come into the county and applied for services. Some of the counties will go all the way back to the 2015, excuse me. Others will just start from the date of filing, the date that they came in and applied for services. So we will help anyone and everyone that has a need for our services. In 1996, that was PRORA. That was one of the last acts that President Clinton did before leaving office. And it stands for Personal Responsibility Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act. It's a really long word, but basically what that did, it really changed a lot of things for our program and also put time-limited benefits on the TANF program. Prior to 1996, families could be on welfare for generations, really. If you had a child in your home, you would be eligible to receive TANF. PRORA now changed the name from AFDC, Aid to Family for Dependent Children, to TANF, which is Temporary Aid to Needy Families. And that is now a 60-month benefit that must end at 60 months. I think there's a lot of waivers that the counties can use in order to continue that. But I think that's really why we're seeing a lot of caretaker relative cases now, where the mom might have used up the 60 months. And now the children are now with grandma or auntie or whomever. Also, though, within child support, we received a lot of abilities to collect support. We used to always, for the most part, we did kind of the old enforcement activities, such as filing a judgment in court for back child support. Then we would try to find property and file a lien. That really was kind of it. We were kind of really just a collection service. With PRORA, it expanded all of our tools. You may or may have not heard, but you know, we do credit reporting, credit bureau reporting, whether or not a person is paying current or back child support. We have to report them if they have a case in our caseload. We also do financial institution data match if they have bank accounts or CDs, anything sitting out in banks, and that's across the country. We have interstate abilities as well. We will attach and pay off child support. Hunting and fishing licenses, that's been one of the most controversial, not necessarily here in the metro area, but the Western Slope has had quite a number of non-custodial parents come in and happily sell their boat and other assets so that they can pay off their child support so that they can get their hunting license. So it is amazing what is important to our non-custodial parents and what encourages them to pay. But that has been in place now since 1996, and we are currently working on driver's license. We do take driver's license right now. We're working on possibly taking the plates, or their ability, a non-custodial parent's ability to renew their plates, their license plates, with the little tag. We're hoping to get that because we found that driver's license, really, people happily drive without driver's license. But if they can't get their little tag on the back of their license plate, that might cause them to pay more frequently. So we have a lot of, we used to call them hammers, because we're not in the business to take away a driver's license or a person's ability to get to work. What we're just trying to do is get consistent payments for the family.
So we had one question come in when you talked about the definition of wage withholding. Can that also be done from VA or military benefits?
Yes. VA is a little different. We have no ability to decide whether or not VA payments are attachable. What the county does now is, as soon as we find out there's VA being paid out, we send the income assignment to the Veterans Administration, and then they determine whether or not we can attach those. A lot of times we cannot. We've actually decided that we're going to meet with the VA and kind of explore better ways to start enforcing our orders, because we've been told in the past, if they say no, that's it. But that's kind of, some of those VA benefits are pretty high. And so we would like to research and see if there's a way that we can encourage cooperation or payment through the VA. Military, absolutely. We have an automatic link with DFAS, which is the military payment vendor, I guess it is, and we actually do automatic electronic attachments to military benefits. Thank you. So I kind of went over this a little bit. Our customers for child support are current TANF recipients and former. So if a client has been on TANF for the last 5 years, let's say, and they've gotten themselves in a good place, they're working, and they kind of wean themselves, get off of TANF, the case will continue on. We keep those cases. They're mandatory for us to work until either the custodial parent says, get the heck out of our lives, or the child emancipates and all the back child support is paid. I mentioned too the non-TANF recipients. That's anyone in the public can come and pay a $20 fee. Foster care cases, those are a mandatory referral as well. And again, that's based on the fact that we have foster care monies, both federal and state funds and county funds that are being paid out to have the children in foster care. So we do both child support orders, and then for the placing parents, say that the custodial parent, for whatever reason, the children are taken and put into foster care, that custodial parent is also assessed a fee order, so that both parents are paying back and supporting the foster care program. Med-only cases, these aren't mandatory, but if a family is on medical and only wants medical help from the 4A side, the TANF side, they can also ask for our assistance in either establishing or enforcing their child support and medical orders. And then finally, child care, which is CCAP, the Colorado Child Care Assistance Program. They are, it depends on the county. Some counties, it's a mandatory referral. Other counties, it is not. But regardless, it is always open to the family if they choose to have us establish child support. we see a lot of cases where we have the case, the family and the custodial parent are receiving TANF benefits, and then the non-custodial parent, he just needs some help with daycare, right? He just comes in, he goes into his county and he's like, I just need after school care or whatever his needs are. We can have both parents receiving benefits. In that particular case, we would go ahead and close out that CCAP referral as long as we already had everything set up for the current TANF paying case. If that makes sense. I hope I didn't kind of confuse anyone there. Did that make sense?
think so.
Okay. So I think I talked a little bit about this. We do locate the non-custodial parents. Many times, the parents, if they've been separated for a while, they really don't know where each other is. So we do locate, like I said, across the country, and some of us, oh my goodness, we have reciprocity with some other countries, not all countries. Like Mexico, we have reciprocity to enforce an order, but we cannot establish. So it's kind of weird, but they are working more and more. Our intergovernmental section is really starting to beef up a lot of international cases and enforcement of those cases. We establish, as I said, paternity, child support, and medical support. We enforce those orders. We do modify them, and we will collect and distribute those collections like up until either the child emancipates and the arrears are paid in full, or the custodial parent says, please get out of my life, which we've had that too. So just real briefly, some of those tools that I was talking about with Perora. Since 1996, we've always had manual enforcement. I mentioned that, the judgments, liens, Rule 69, where we make the person answer interrogatories and kind of empty their pockets, take whatever they have in their possession to pay child support. But we now receive, with automated tools, credit reporting. We report every month. Driver's license, we monitor and make sure if there's not been a payment for so many months, it will start suspension of their driver's license. Professional and occupational licensing. So if we do have a doctor or electrician, plumber, anyone that's under the Department of Regulatory Agencies, we will suspend their license. The bar has a separate one for all the attorneys. Recreational licensing, I mentioned hunting and fishing licenses. That's just huge on the Western Slope. We've seen some really interesting things happen in order to reclaim their license. Recreationally, also, it's for those of you that know anything about or know the hunting out here, when you file for those elk tags and you have a party of 4 applying for those tags, if there's one of you in the group, all 4 of those folks are suspended for a year, I believe, and that's through the Department of Wildlife. So we kind of don't have much control over what their rules and regs are. But believe you me, I'm sure not many folks want to be the bad guy in their group not getting the elk tag. Gambling intercept, we were the first in the country to be able to intercept gambling winnings. And we do quite a good business, as you can imagine, up the hill in Central City and Black Hawk. Unemployment compensation, we pull 50% of unemployment compensation for child support. Workers' compensation, same thing, we attach those funds. Financial institution data match, that's where we go into the bank accounts. If it's a retirement account, if it's a 401k, and savings, checkings, we can put liens on those and freeze and seize. And then, of course, offset. So we do collect federal and state tax returns. We have administrative and vendor offset, where that would be if I were a painter and the state of Colorado needed someone to paint, I went in, we would actually attach that vendor, his payroll that would go out for child support if he owed child support. And then finally, passport denial. And that actually is pretty interesting as well. It's amazing how many new father-in-laws will pay their new son-in-law's child support in order for them to go on their honeymoon. So Yes, we do deny passports as well. So that's just some of the, I hate talking about all the tools because they're almost like little whack of, something pops up, we try and whack you with something else, which is not really our intent. But, some people just are not interested in paying child support. So what you're probably all really interested in is the family violence option. So TANF has the ability for a client to request good cause. So they do have to provide some type of documentation. It really kind of depends on what the county is asking for. Each county has their own review board in which they look at the request, and I've heard they need things like the restraining order or some type of letter from family members or someone that can say, yes, this is happening. If they grant good cause or it's pending good cause, child support is never given that referral. So it never comes over to child support. We don't want to see those cases. If they have a reason for good cause, there's no reason for us to even open a case. However, we do have several custodial parents that are like, heck no, I don't want the person to know where me and the children are, but I want to collect my child support. So in those cases, we have in child support NDI, which is non-disclosure indicator. And what that does, it really keeps the Social Security, dates of birth, addresses, any personal information from being put on any motions and orders that we file with court. Because as you know, child support, we're in court all the time. And of course, we need that identifying information on motions and orders, right? But this non-disclosure allows us to keep any of that personal information from being shared at the court level so that we can establish and enforce everything that we can do within our program, but that personal information will not be sent to the non-custodial parent. Now, it's kind of interesting because I think the next slide says, no, oh, that's okay. It's probably the next one. And no, this is fine. So once NDI is requested, and it's really an ask and you shall receive. Some counties really kind of ask for some type of, not necessarily a restraining order, but some type of a letter maybe from someone, because what we don't want to do is stop all of this personal information from ending up in the court, because the court still has the responsibility to notify both parents. So what we do in our system is we ask the applying parent, and it can be both custodial or non-custodial, either parent can request this. And what we ask them for is an alternate address. And that's where it kind of does get sticky, because obviously you all know if I have a safety concern, I'm not about to put my mother or my best friend or my sister's address in the child support system for my non-custodial parent to know or go after them instead of me, not knowing whether it was my address or not. So many counties will use the county address as the alternate address if the person doesn't have one. The only thing that causes is kind of a three-way problem where the county is the one who's always notified. So if the courts have any notices that come through on the non-custodial parent side and the custodial parent has their information blocked, then the county in which the case is open ends up having to receive those motions, orders, whatever the other parent has been filing. So that is kind of one of the things that is kind of a little funky with our system, but unfortunately we have to have somewhere to send these notices. There's no personal information that will be sent out, as I said before, so all of that is really being kept off of the motions and orders. The only thing too is, I think it's on the next one, is that we don't want, what it doesn't provide is it's not complete address protection. I'm always afraid that our clients think that we're Big Brother because we're government, that we will be able to protect them. And unfortunately, the only thing that the non-disclosure is doing is keeping the personal information out of the motion and order. So if the person the non-custodial parent knows where the family is living, this isn't going to help. I've always said if that person has that much concern, I always refer them to the address confidentiality program with the Secretary of State's office, because this is really just keeping it out of the courts. And if the person knows where the family was last year and they haven't moved, I mean, I've really tried to make it very clear to our clients to make sure that they understand what NDI is and is not. And again, it's not a restraining order or anything like that. We just keep it out of the courts. Okay.
So I just asked about address confidentiality, and in fact, I was going to say that as well, and then you covered that. So great.
Yeah. So basically, we do have the ability to keep their personal information confidential. And again, it's just really for within the motions and orders and the things that we file. I do know that when it comes to intergovernmental cases, I still think there's a pretty good hole there, if you will, because it's still going to go out. Those motions and orders don't have the person's name or the children's name, social security numbers, dates of birth, but it's going to have the city and county of, or the court of, state of. Those are still things that I think we kind of don't have a way around, because we have to have that on the document. So I still think it's not a perfect setup, but at least we're trying to do what we can as far as keeping the information out of the other parents' hands, I guess. And good cause, if I could go back to the TANF side, the good cause, I believe they're pretty good at reviewing those. Some give them 6 months good cause, some are a year. It's just up to the client as far as what they need in order to feel safe. I do know that our child support offices, we've really been trying to look a lot closer at these cases. I just rewrote our child support application for the state. It just went out literally last week. And what I did is I moved all the questions concerning safety and any domestic violence to the front of the application. It used to be buried in the very back. For those of you that have seen our application, I've moved it to the front, and that was based on recommendations from Michael Hayes. I don't know if you know him. He's one of our federal partners, and he looked at our application and actually approved what we did as far as moving it forward. And I've also attached the affidavit of non-disclosure, which is what your client would complete upon requesting non-disclosure for child support. So hopefully it gets a little better. I have also a webinar scheduled for our counties next month in November to review kind of NDI and what we need to pay attention to. Because we have had 3 counties now have been sued, and they've had to relocate clients. So I think it's time to really start beefing up what we're looking at. And I really appreciate all of you and the work that you do. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me either by phone or email, because I'm happy to address or really look at some of the issues you all may have, because you're out there on the lines.
So you kind of touched on this. Someone asked how long the waiver is good for, and so you said for the good cause,
it can be 6 months or a year.
Okay.
Yeah, and they do relook at it at their redetermination. I always thought it was 1 whole year, but I was just working a case this morning in which it was only given. Boulder County gave them 6 months. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure what their, but like I said, it is up to the county policy and procedures and the way that they handle their good cause requests.
What other questions do folks have out there?
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah, is there anything that you think that we should be doing? What child support, how can we help your clients more or help it make it more clear?
So if you're out there, go ahead and you can type some responses in if there's something that is concerning you about any of your folks that you're working with, or how child support services could help better. Or do you have questions for Mary while we have her here? We've got about 20 more minutes, so there's plenty of time for people to ask questions if you have one. And we certainly will share Mary's contact information after the webinar. And while people are thinking about questions, I will just share that when the webinar ends, you will see pop up a very short but very important evaluation. So please remember to just take, I think Shannon used to say 30 seconds or something like that to fill it out and make sure that you give us some feedback about today. We'll also be having a brown bag in November. I can't tell you right now what the topic is, although I think we do have an idea of what it is. We'll send out that information soon, but also wanted to let you know that we do have a webinar coming up on October 31st around the issue of housing, and we'll be sending more information out about that really shortly. Someone asked about clients residing in the U.S. with non-custodial parents in Canada. So are you asking then, can
we enforce that? Do we have reciprocity? Yes.
See, I know. How about if the, so yeah, so first let's ask, yeah, can they enforce it? Yes. So looks like you can.
Yes, you can, yes, your client, have them go in and apply at their local office if they're not receiving any TANF or anything or medical. And then yes, that they would be able to assist them in working with Canada and establishing or just enforcing whatever the needs are.
Great. And then someone asked if the parents were never married or the father was never put on the birth certificate, can child support still be applied for?
Absolutely, that's a great question. Yes, if the father's name was never put on the birth certificate, that's when we need to establish paternity. And that is actually one of the huge, the federal government pays 90% of those establishment cases, because that's one of the most important things that they feel, and I agree, to get paternity established. So yeah, as long as you know, the custodial parent has some idea, name, that type of thing, we have great locate assets, because we actually work, you know, all throughout the states and the federal government, where we can do a lot of locate sources. If they have an idea where the person is, chances are we're going to find that person, and then they are served, and they have the ability to come in and have negotiation conferences. They can request genetic testing, and we will test everyone that custodial parent, or actually the mom, would name as a potential father. So yes, absolutely, that's one of our big services.
Can you go after the father if they are not legal citizens, or so if they're undocumented?
Isn't that funny? I'm drawing a blank. I know we have undocumented cases. I'm going to have to get back to you on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
So we'll make sure to send up a follow-up email with the answer to that question.
I'm sorry about that.
No,
Jeez,
that's a great question. Then.
Yeah, well, see, and I started questioning myself. I don't say anything.
Other questions do people have? These are some great ones.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think that we probably got through them all, and we might end just a little bit early, but I just want to say thank you so much. This has been incredibly helpful, and I hope folks out there have gotten the information that they're looking for.
Yeah, and also I'll encourage, you know, your clients, that's a great question for them, you know, when they're concerned with their benefits, you know, whether they want to apply for child support or not. Just let them know that I don't know how. You know, I think because they're so overwhelmed with the application process, you know, everything that they need to provide to a county, are they paying, you know, are they even realizing that they can apply for good cause or non-disclosure? So, you know, if that's something that you all can kind of highlight as well as you work with your clients, that would be great, because I can't imagine how overwhelmed they are, you know, when they're coming through the process. And I mean, it's bad enough when everything's great, you know, it's also bureaucratic. So yeah, if you have any questions on either side, you know, I can always hook you up with the TANF folks if you have good cause questions as well.
All right, well, if there are no more questions, we will go ahead and end the presentation today. But again, we look forward to seeing all of you on the second Tuesday of November at noon for our next brown bag discussion. And we'll certainly follow up with Mary's information and the answer to the question on non-citizenship. So thanks so much for joining us today, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.